So let's take even more time to talk a bit more about preparation, especially in this kind of format. This is the one area which you have the most control over, and as it's often been said, fail to prepare and prepare to fail. You can't omit this stage, and the more you prepare, the better your chances of getting your message across successfully and not making an idiot of yourself on national TV. So, here are some tips on how to prepare for an interview or press conference. As usual, you can find a handy checklist in the material provided, which you can just have to follow to ensure that you don't forget anything. So let's begin with the former. Now, what generally happens here is that your company will be contacted by a network with a request for an interview. And here there are a number of considerations. What kind of network is it? Are they, say, right-wing conservatives, like, say, Fox News, with an obvious agenda, or are they more balanced and impartial? Then, who is the interviewer? Is he or she pugnacious or aggressive? For instance, I've seen Tim Sebastian in Hard Talk introduce a guest in this manner. Hello, Mr. So-and-so, a very warm welcome to the show. Do you take bribes? Or perhaps the interviewer applies a softer touch and is not constantly interrupting and actually allows their guest to answer the questions. Check what they have already written or said about your company and the crisis in question. If it is aggressive and negative, you may even want to think twice about taking the interview at all. So, who is the right person to take the interview? If you are the spokesperson, then more than likely it's going to be you, generally speaking. However, during a crisis, it's usually far more appropriate for the boss to perform the interview and take the questions, though he might defer to a company expert if there's a technical issue that requires explaining. Still, however, it is one or all of you, and then you will absolutely need to prepare. And here's what to do. Essentially, this will require a bit of brainstorming as well. So decide on the most important messages that you need to get out. Figure out how best to say them using the soundbite technique which I described earlier. Anticipate what kind of questions you might get, including the worst nightmare ones. Figure out your most effective answers. And then practice. You've probably seen TV shows such as The West Wing or Designated Survivor, where the president is put under the microscope by his communications team during a crisis or debate. They generally take turns in grilling him in this practice situation until they've uncovered his or her weaknesses and have refined the responses. This is exactly what you should do. Ask the questions, including the nasty ones, over and over again until the interviewees are comfortable with their answers. Record these sessions on your iPhone and go over them again. Watch out for hesitation, weird body language, inaudible or gabbled answers, and rehearse, just like for a play, if you're an actor. There's really no substitute for this stage, and the more you do it, the more comfortable the interviewee will be, and therefore more successful the outcome. Now, with press conferences, the preparation is similar. However, the questions are always preceded by a speech or a statement. Now, most large organizations will have a speechwriter to do this. Assuming you don't, however, there's some general rules to adhere to, which are worth mentioning. So let's begin with the 4 rules that George Orwell, one of the most economical and effective writers ever, let's hear what he suggests. Number 1, never use a metaphor, simile, or other figure of speech which you are used to seeing in print. So, any cliche such as, this is going to be a game changer, we need to get our ducks in a row, or we have to go back to the drawing board. The problem with these is they are tired, overused, and therefore make you sound like everyone else, hence, soon forgotten. The best advice here is to try and think up your own. Number 2 is never use a long word, where a short one will do. Now, some inexperienced writers, who may well be extremely competent, have a tendency to show off their vocabulary. This either comes across as talking above someone, and or if the person doesn't understand the word in question, then you've lost them. 3. If it is possible to cut a word out, do so. In his 1946 essay, Politics and the English Language, Orwell singled out what he called verbal false limbs. And these are wordy, awkward constructions in place of a single, simple word. Some examples he gave include exhibit a tendency to, or serve the purpose of, playing a leading part in, have the effect of, or due to the fact that, which could all be replaced by the far simpler because. Rule number 4, never use the passive where you can use the active voice. Have a listen to this. He punched the president in the face. Subject, verb, object. Active, direct. Not elegant, but you get the point immediately. Now, if you reverse that sentence into the passive voice, you get, the president was punched in the face by him. Muddy, clumsy, and awkward. You get the picture. Some other considerations when writing speeches. Keep those sentences short and punchy, with plenty of spaces for the speaker to take a breath. More importantly, for the audience to take in what was said. Generally effective orators will speak more slowly than their normal pacing. We've mentioned it before, but long, involved sentences provide ample opportunity for your listener to get lost in the maze of your prose. Don't use acronyms, management speak, or technical language, unless, of course, you're talking to a room full of technical experts who are perfectly familiar with the terminology. Use adjectives with care. This is because many are redundant. Blue skies, sandy beaches, while others are being coupled with the dreaded cliches such as stately elms, delightful gardens, and tremendous job. And you know who says that one a lot, whenever he can. So only use an adjective when it really describes how the object in question is different. Angry or leaden skies, abandoned beaches. You get the idea, I hope. Write more with nouns and verbs, not adjectives and adverbs. So the former will often do the job of an adjective or adverb more effectively. Here's a single comparison to show you what I mean. So also with speeches, like a good presentation, begin with a bang. Please avoid the horrible good afternoon. My name is Mr. Oliver and I'm going to be talking to you about, it'll last about 30 minutes and start with a bang. Let's have a look at an example.
I need to make a confession at the outset here. A little over 20 years ago, I did something that I regret. Something that I'm not particularly proud of. Something that in many ways I wish no one would ever know, but that here I feel kind of obliged to reveal. In the late 1980s, in a moment of youthful indiscretion, I went to law school. Now,
I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, 221 years ago, in a hall that still stands across the street, a group of men gathered and with these simple words launched America's improbable experiment in democracy. Farmers and scholars, statesmen and patriots who had traveled across the ocean to escape tyranny and...
I can't thank you guys for the opportunity. Let me tell you something. If tomorrow wasn't promised, what would you give for today? Forget everything else. Forget everything else. Forget that there was any sunlight left. What would you spend today thinking about? Yourself or the man that's beside you?
When I spoke here last winter, this nation was facing the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We were losing an average of 700,000 jobs per month. Credit was frozen, and our financial system was on the verge of collapse. As any American who is still looking for work or a way to pay their bills will tell you, we are by no means out of the woods. A full and vibrant recovery is still many months away. And I will not let up until those Americans who seek jobs can find them.
Also, end with a bang. An effective ending should feature something profound.